gamers. First and foremost, we hit 100 subs. That means a lot to me, so thanks for everybody who's subscribed and who enjoys my videos. If you're not already subscribed and you'd like to hear more about your boy's love for video games, please subscribe in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. But we are not here today to talk about me. No, today we are talking about Shin Megami Tensei Persona 4 Golden Edition on Steam. And if you're confused about the giant name, I don't blame you, but let me shed a little light on it. Now there's quite a bit to unpack here, so grab yourself some Java, grab yourself a little granola, and take my hand, and let's dive into the Midnight Channel. Now let me give you the old flip it up and rub it down of what Persona is. Shin Megami Tensei is a JRPG developed and published by Atlus. Now there's a plethora of SMT games, but there's also sub-series games like the Persona franchise. Usually the SMT sub-series allow players to just freely jump into the games without having the weight of having to play the previous or the next installment on them. But we're not really talking about SMT, we're talking about Persona. So what is Persona? Persona do be much like its daddy game SMT, where it is a JRPG in a modern setting, but it's usually focused around high school kids and haunted appliances. Each Persona game has some sort of haunted catalyst that conjures up otherworldly powers. They got haunted card games, they got haunted video games, they got haunted apps for your phone. The third game has haunted time of the day, for God's sake. But haunted stuff aside, what does Persona mean to me? As a kid, I was a big fat Final Fantasy nerd. I never really branched out to any other RPGs until I hit high school. But even when I did branch out, there had to be one constant. The RPG had to, must, no exceptions, be in a fantasy setting. If I do be not slapping gobblers, killing ghouls, I don't want anything to do with your JRPG. So naturally, being a stubborn gamer who doesn't like having fun, I missed out on all these great JRPGs like SMT and Persona. And sadly, later in my life, I did branch out and start playing other games that were more in my comfort zone, but my love for JRPGs began to dwindle. As we grow older, we gain more responsibilities. Jobs, partners, families, just genuinely not able to allocate the time needed for a 90+ hour game. Gone are the days that we could just get home from school, scramble into the kitchen, grab some Tostitos, go back to our room and play our favorite game for 8 hours. Now we are faced with working 8 hours, maintaining a social life, growing our own families, let alone time to play games. Hell, you need to put 30 minutes away just to install a physical copy of a game into a console. All of these factors kind of mushed together to form a personal bias that no game is worth spending 80+ hours on, and it's just a waste of time. But I was wrong. For the past 7 years, every time I heard JRPG or RPG, I thought waste of time. Until one day, on a whim, I bought Yakuza 7. And guys, listen, I'm gonna make a video about Yakuza 7 at some point in this channel's lifespan. But I want you to know that that game is the sole reason why my love for JRPGs was reignited. And probably the reason why we're making this video. Which brings us to the topic we're talking about today. Persona 4. This was, at the time, a game that I knew I would not like. My whole friend group at the time was playing it together, and I was kind of always left out of the conversations they had when we hung out. I just kept telling myself, it's a waste of time. But much like Yakuza 7, I bought Persona 4 Golden on Steam, and it reignited the love I had for JRPGs. Once again, a second time. When will it stop? Persona 4 has you take the role of Yu Narukami, a silent protagonist that acts like a self-insert for the player. And throughout the game, you make all sorts of decisions in the dialogue that help increase your personality, which is your, expression, diligence, understanding, knowledge, courage, which by raising can further dialogue options, unlock new jobs. You can also score higher on tests with greater knowledge and be able to eat endless beef beef bowls with all of your stats raised up. I'm not kidding. There's beef bowls in this game that don't ever stop being beef. They don't ever stop. The beef doesn't stop. There's a lot of beef. Yu has just been pawned off by his parents to leave the city and come to the beautiful countryside of Inaba under the watchful eye of his uncle Dojima and your TV-addicted cousin Nanako. From here, you start attending Yasogami High School, and much like real high school, you start to meet a lot of people, such as dumb friend, loud friend, smart friend, thug friend, furry friend, thirsty friend, athletic friend 2, goth friend, mystery friend, and the list goes on. And one would think high school is super easy, but no, there's a dang murder on the loose, and you're gonna find out who did it, who done did it, who's killing all these people. With your friends and with your stands, your personas, which enters probably one of the most cozy settings for a murder mystery. Move over, Agatha Christie. Here comes Inaba. Picture a small, rainy town on the countryside. Mysterious murders that only appear after several days of rain and when the fog is most dense. The whole game takes place in the countryside of Inaba, and you spend most of your time here socializing, working, going to school, and going to events. But while you spend most of your time leveling up your relationships with people and studying, you are also trying to figure out why these murders keep happening. Which brings us to the next area of the game, the second area, if you will. There's a lot of areas, but there's two major areas: the Midnight Channel and the dungeons within. The Midnight Channel is an elusive and rumored TV channel that shows up on your TV on rainy nights at midnight. People say if you can see another person in the Midnight Channel, they're your soulmate. Hi, hello, I didn't see you there. I'm gonna put a spoiler warning up because this next part it's a small spoiler, but you find it out pretty early on. You've been warned. But it turns out the people that show up on the Midnight Channel are not in fact your soul lovers, but they are targets for that dang murderer, and he gonna kill them after a few days of rain and when the heavy fog rolls in. However, after the first few murders, smart friend Yukiko appears on the Midnight Channel. But by this time, dumb friend Yosuke, loud friend Chie, and you have gained the power to traverse inside of a TV at your local Junius, which is just SMT Walmart. This takes them to the Midnight Channel, where they meet Teddy, their furry friend Teddy. I've got a very love-hate relationship with Teddy. I'm not gonna lie with you guys. He cheers you on from the bleachers when you're in battle. Like he comments on everything you do, everything. Fall over and he'll literally say something. Why can't I turn it off, Atlas? I don't wanna, he's just there the whole time, just yelling. He's so happy, but like it's making me so sad. So that's Persona 4 in a nutshell. It's high school kids and a cozy countryside murder mystery. But what if I was to tell you that not only is it a cozy countryside murder, no, but also a slice of life simulator with a little dash of Pokemon. Persona 4 has got to have some of the most unique mechanics to a RPG I've ever played. I just heard somebody scream, like super loud. Like it sounded like someone just got murdered. Like it wasn't like a, it was like a. For example, I was stressed for exams in this game, which is, it's in a fictional world. There's no stress on me, but yet I was stressed. While you're spending your day-to-day life in Inaba, you're also attending school. And in attending school, you also have to make sure that you are keeping your grades up to date by studying in a library, studying at home, much like real life. And every time you study, you gain extra knowledge and eventually level up your knowledge stat, which then makes you do better on tests. The higher you rank on your exam, the more your friends like you. During the classes, you can answer questions your teachers ask you, and if you answer them correctly, you actually get stat increases in your knowledge. And by attending extracurricular activities like soccer, band, or drama club, you can level up your diligence by hanging with your homies. For me, I picked soccer club, and it branched out into a sub-arcing story that was extremely interesting to me for some reason. So interesting that I actually maxed out my social rank with Daisuke and Ku. I went to every practice, never missed a practice. You can join multiple different clubs, but I didn't because music class is for nerds and drama's for betas. I was in a D&D club in high school. My DM never let me be a dwarf paladin. And when you're done school, you can go to a job board and accept a job. I chose to go work with a scary, seductive nurse who I'm pretty sure she touched me. I think she touched me a couple times. I'm not sure. I also tutored a child prodigy, and sometimes I would go home and just fold origami. I always sent mine to the pretty girls. You can also go into town and buy and sell gear at Daidara's, or buy supplies at Shiroku's general store. Or after school, you can go hang out with somebody and strengthen your bonds, which increases your Persona's power. Speaking of which, I should probably explain the whole bond system Persona thing. Main characters you meet in the game will unlock Arcanas, which are these tarot cards that classify Personas. A Persona is kind of like an embodiment of your own self. Yu has the Arcana of the Fool, which is a wild card, which means he can use every other Arcana there is. And if you know anything about tarot cards, there's like 23 or 21 different cards. So it's 21 different types of Personas. Thus, when a bond is formed, it levels up that said Arcana class, and if you're using a Persona of that class, the more you level up the bond, the stronger it becomes. Got all that? Okay, good, because there's more! Personas are demons from the SMT series that act as Pokemon. You can collect them. As previously said, the Arcanas are tied to the Personas themselves. So Hanuman, for example, is a Strength Arcana, and getting the Strength to level 10, you can only do that by going to Soccer Club and hanging out with Daisuke and Ku. And on top of them getting more powerful from bonds, when you go into dungeons, you can actually level them up and train them, which gives them new abilities, new passives, and you kind of starting to see, you know, the connection I'm making here. They're a little bit like Pokemon.
Who's that Pokemon?
It's Mara.
Which I like. I like Pokemon. There's also a function in the Velvet Room, which is your hub spot where you would give skills to Personas, summon Personas, or fuse them together. And when you fuse 2, or I think it's 2 to like 7 different Personas together, you can choose from which abilities you want to transfer onto your new evolved Persona, which grants a huge library of possibilities for your Personas. Not every Persona that you fuse into a new Persona will have the same abilities. It's all going to be unique to whatever you want, unless you min-max, which that, you know, then that takes that whole argument out of the thing. But I'm gonna assume you don't min-max, because I'm assuming you do everything blind. You don't look up guides. I don't look up guides. I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. And how you originally obtain your Personas is at the end of the battle, something called Shuffle Time will happen. I'll get into Shuffle Time later in the video, but just know that the Shuffle Time event makes a randomness of what Personas you get. Sometimes you get a really rare one, sometimes you don't. But that just adds another layer to the game that makes it fun and enjoyable. Each one being unique to use in combat as you explore the Midnight Channel. Speaking of which, I'm gonna talk to you guys a little bit about the dungeons. One of the few criticisms I have about this game is in fact the dungeons. Each dungeon has a theme linked to the inner self of the person who appeared on the Midnight Channel. For example, the first dungeon, Smart Friend Yukiko's Castle. The player sees Yukiko appear on the Midnight Channel in a dress, acting flirtatious and looking to score with a hot stud. Hi, hello. This is unusual for Yukiko, of course, because she's usually against flirting and innuendos of any kind. Her inner self, shadow self, reflects the frustrations that she has of being stuck in Iniba. She is required to act proper all the time because her family expects her to be the future manager of their inn. She's like a bird in a cage, which is what her boss form represents, and it just shows that she wants the freedom to make her own choices. And the dungeons are great in the way that they're thematically made, and the story that surrounds them is great, but they're all just pre-generated hallways. Sometimes there are rooms that go off, but they have nothing more than maybe an enemy or a treasure chest in them. And in the halls, there are sometimes enemies, or maybe sometimes treasure chests, but nothing remotely interesting at all. The goal of the dungeon is to basically find a staircase and go to the next floor, up or down, doesn't matter. And that's it. Roam the halls, get some treasure, fight some dudes, find a staircase, go up or down, wherever you need to go. But the thing I do like about that is, since there's so many floors, you actually don't have to do a dungeon in one go, and it's actually required, usually, if you're bad like me, to actually go out of the dungeon, resupply, get healed, and then go back in another day. Which I like in games because it kind of reminds you of old school D&D. And at the end of the dungeon, you meet the shadow self of whoever is the owner of the dungeon, and you fight them, which leads me into combat. Combat in SMT games, Persona or Shinigami Tensei, it's amazing, it's great. They're still your traditional take-turn battles, but they add a little oomph. The way combat works is just mind-blowing. I played a lot of Final Fantasy, so you know, click a button, go attack, they attack you, click a button, they attack you, you attack them, they attack you, limit break. That's Final Fantasy VII. I played all the other ones. The way Persona 4 works is you attack Shadow, or a Shadow attacks you first in the overworld or in the dungeon, which gives advantage to you or him, basically letting one of you guys act first. And then it proceeds to go back into the take turn battle. However, there is one little tiny little thing that makes it different. You have to play on enemies' weaknesses and they have to play on yours. And this is so refreshing and adds great pacing to the fight. If you hit an enemy that's weak to fire with a fire move, it gets knocked down and you get another turn. Knock all the enemies down and then everybody gets to jump in on an all-out attack, which a big cloud of violence happens and things are like whaps and I hope whaps aren't flying out. And it does true damage to the enemy, which all of the enemies, which does a lot of damage and bypasses all of their defenses. And I have to say, this makes combat so much fun. Shaking my fists at God because you eventually get a rhythm of hitting enemies, knocking them down, then doing all of the attacks, and it just makes things so much smoother. And mind you, there's more than just that. You can have offensive moves, defensive moves, buffs, debuffs, all that other stuff. And you need to consider doing those because the battles get a little hard near the end. And enemies can even reflect attacks back or absorb them. And depending on what persona you is using, you have a different weakness depending on that. You share the weaknesses with the personas. Some personas are better at using magic, others are better at using physical attacks. And the enemies can end up hitting your weaknesses and causing a huge problem. If everybody gets knocked down, they start getting extra turns, you guys start just getting your cheeks clapped, and you have to be tactical and get rid of the shadows as fast as possible. And at the end of combat, that's when shuffle time happens and cards swoop down onto your screen and you get to pick which ones you want to take. They can contain anything from new personas to extra XP, more gold. There's even free levels up. And you only get a limited amount of choice of what cards you want to pick unless you pick other cards that give you more picks but also take away all your gold, all your XP. And then if you end up getting all of the cards, you get a sweep bonus which guarantees that at the end of the next encounter you get another shuffle time. And I love shuffle time because it adds a little mini game at the end of the battle, and once again, it's just, you know, like, listen, Persona is like a big old cake. It's got a bunch of layers, and when you cut into it, it's so good. All these layers, you got combat, Persona. There's like the custard filling in it, and like, actually I like custard, but say you don't like custard. There's a custard filling in it, and that's like the dungeons, and you're kind of like, I'll eat it because the rest tastes great, but like, food, because I'm a fat boy. Need my sugar. It just gives you something to look forward to rather than an XP grind. But in playing Persona 4, it did make me realize something. In my time playing Persona 4, it has reminded me of a lot of things. Work hard, love your family, increase your stats to make you a better person. But if the game could make me take home one thing with it, it's that doing things you enjoy is never a waste of time. Persona 4 encapsulates the essence of using your time wisely. Finish putting off a dungeon for too long and suddenly somebody dies. You lose if that happens. Ignore studying and you do poorly on your tests and everybody freaking hates you, dude. Sometimes I would just waste my time running around Inaba talking to people before going to bed. And I'm sure I could have spent my time more wisely in different places, but where I did spend my time, I had a lot of fun. Discovering new characters, taking in the scenery, finding little secrets, and just genuinely enjoying myself. In the long run, I put a lot of time into things that I thought were just interesting or cool, but didn't really help progress the story or better my character. Here is like kind of like where, in a bizarre way, I realized that this game's kind of a reflection of real life. I thought JRPGs were just a waste of time for so long. Why would I spend time putting all of my energy into this one game? Well, I'll tell you why. Little bitch. The reason we play games isn't to finish them as fast as possible, it's to experience them. And I know you guys are like, Riley, you're so stupid, it's so obvious. Of course you play games to experience them, idiot. Well, yeah, I know, but for a long time, I didn't realize that. Persona 4 isn't a waste of time because it shows you the value of friendship and families, pursuing your interests, bettering yourself, eating them beef bowls, dog. It took a JRPG about spending your time wisely to show me that if you're enjoying something, then it's not a waste of time. In Closing, Persona 4 is a great game. A game with an interesting story, fun mechanics, and a slamming soundtrack. Honestly, I'm sad it's over, but it reignited my love for RPGs once again. And I'm excited to play Persona 5. So thanks guys for watching my video. Sorry I haven't uploaded in 2 months. Life gets in the way. It do be like that sometimes. But my next video, hopefully I'll get it out either latest in a month, earlier perhaps. And if you enjoyed the video, like it and subscribe. This is the kind of content I make. Just talk about video games. I don't know why. They're not reviews. They're just like, they're just things. Thanks guys, and see you in the next one.